welcome everybody. This is going to be a fun class, hopefully. So I welcome you to the Science of Confections, week 1 of the You and I Together series. I am Grace Whitman, and I'll do a little more of an introduction on myself here in a minute. But let's see here. I am going to share a slide set, so I will get that up here. One second. I'm working on 2 computers because, you know, that's the fun way to do it. All right, here we go. All right. So to start us off, we like to let everybody know about what Extension does and what you can gain from University of Idaho Extension. We bring knowledge and research of the university to you where you live when it's convenient for you.
And Grace, we can't see the PowerPoint.
Oh, it's not sharing?
No, it's not.
Did it share a minute ago?
No.
Oh.
That's okay. If it doesn't share, you can just talk at us if it's not going to cooperate.
That's kind of weird. Oh, that's because it doesn't look like I'm in the right Zoom anymore. Let's get in the right one. How about that? Not sure where I am. Okay, let's escape that. Okay. Not sure. Let's see here. Let's click on this. There you guys are. Okay. This might help. I'm not sure how I had another Zoom up, but I did. Okay. How about right here? How's that, everybody? Are we sharing now? That's exciting. And believe it or not, I really did test all of this before we got started. So University of Idaho Extension brings the knowledge and research of the university to you where you live, and in a way that's hopefully convenient for you. We work in many different areas: food production systems, 4-H youth development, horticulture and small farms, community development, nutrition, health and wellness, forestry and natural resources, and then water. So lots of different things. We are in 42 different counties across the state of Idaho. So you can usually always find an extension office in one of our counties. And so I am going to move to the video. Whoops, there we go. And we'll get that started.
University of Idaho Extension is growing Idaho's economy by improving sustainable food production systems while supporting ranchers and farmers. From livestock and forages to pest and disease management, variety development, small farms and food systems, and farm and ranch management, UI Extension is helping to build a better future.
So a little bit about myself. I worked in Extension for 18 years. I am married with 2 kids, a 17-year-old this coming Friday, which is kind of scary, and then an 11-year-old. And I generally work in the areas of family consumer sciences and 4-H youth development. And so in those areas, I like to teach cooking classes, home food preservation classes to both youth and adults. And then I've also done a lot of work in 4-H teen leadership. And so those are kind of the areas that I do work in. And today specifically, we're going to be doing a little bit on a new curriculum that I have that is called the Science of Confections. And we're going to focus on the sugar one for this segment. It does have a chocolate piece to it. And this curriculum is hopefully going to publication within the next year. That is our hope. So that is something we'll be doing. So I am going to have Gretchen hand me those 2 thermometers right over there. So you guys got your pre-lesson paperwork. And so with that, one of the things I believe it talked about was having a candy thermometer. And so candy thermometers are really important, or even just a digital read thermometer. If you don't have a specific candy thermometer at home, you can use a digital read like a ThermoPro or something like that. However, I do recommend you always do that with an adult. Because you have to put your hand kind of over that hot sugar. So candy thermometers are the better bet. They usually have a little clip on them so that they just clip right onto your pan, onto the side of your pan. There's many different options. There's this one that looks like the old style thermometer, mercury thermometer. These are not mercury, but they look like the old style. So that's one option you can go with. The other is we have these ones that are kind of a digital thermometer. You turn them on. You can set them so then they beep at you when your temperature is reached, which can be really handy. And then the one I'm using today is just round, and it has the same thing as this, same temperatures, just in a round format. So there's lots of different options. There's the big ones that are flat that can hook onto the side of your pan as well. The biggest thing with food thermometers, or with candy thermometers especially, is to remember to make sure you've done an altitude adjustment with them. They all read a little bit differently. They all work a little differently. So you just want to make sure that you know what yours does. So the first activity that you guys received is candy thermometers and altitude adjustment. And so we're going to talk a little bit about making that altitude adjustment real quick. All right, so for altitude adjustments, there's two ways that you guys can do this. Number one is you can just do some math. So if you know the elevation that you live at, you're just going to adjust a finish temperature on a recipe. So say you're doing the one today, the finished temperature is 310 degrees. So if you live at 4,000 feet, you're going to adjust that temperature 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet above sea level. So for us, it would be 8 degrees, okay? So you can do it that way. The other way you can do it is by doing a boiling water test. And I actually prefer the boiling water test. It can be a little more accurate because you're actually getting a read off of your thermometer as opposed to just making a prediction as to what it reads at boiling. And so basically what you do is just put a small pan on your stove, and then attach your thermometer to it, bring the water up to a boil, making sure that your thermometer tip, this end down here, doesn't touch the bottom of the pan. And then take a temperature after the water has been boiling for 5 minutes. And that will give you your most accurate temperature for what your water boils at, according to your thermometer, okay? So, for example, the one that we have in the actual handout, say your thermometer is reading 204 degrees, but your recipe says the final cook temperature is 230. So you would take about 8 degrees off of that, okay? And you would have a final cook temperature of 222 degrees Fahrenheit. Why do you guys think that's important? Does anybody want to unmute and maybe answer? Why do you think it's important to know, to make that adjustment? Anybody? That's okay. I can give you the answer. So the number one reason is because if you don't make that adjustment, what you can end up doing is overcooking your sugar. And I actually did that today. I was making some stuff for another program, and I was testing out a new burner, and my sugar got way too hot. And I basically ended up with black, almost tar when I was done. And none of us want that. Plus you get that burnt sugar smell and it's not great. So, and you've just wasted all of your food or your supplies that have gone into that. So it's really important to just know what temperature is best and then go from there. So that's how you would do that. There is a little, on this handout, there is a little place where you can put in your numbers, so that way you can make sure of that. We actually recommend doing this process every single day that you make candy. You don't have to do it every single time you make candy. Like if you're making 3 or 4 things in one day, you don't necessarily need to redo your boiling water test, but each day you should do it again, just to be sure that your thermometer is reading the way you want it to, or you know what it's reading at least. The other thing is if you're like me, I end up using a different thermometer every time. And so therefore I can have a difference. And so it's really important to do that. One of the things that we haven't necessarily, that isn't in the handout that I talked about, but is something that I know my staff and I discussed today, is to be very conscious of weather. And so like if it's snowing out, it may not be the day to make candy because it's too high in humidity. So sometimes humidity can play a big thing in whether or not to do this. The other thing you want to do when making sure your sugar solution is perfect is to do a cold water test. So we gauge where we're at based on the thermometer, but the cold water test really is what tells us where our candy is at or where our sugar solution is. And so basically what that means is you just take a small, like a spoon, a little spoon, and you dip into your sugar solution and then drip that into cold water. You want ice cold water. Dribble that into that ice cold water, and then it will tell you exactly what you're looking for. So today we're looking for it to make basically a string of sugar that breaks right in half. Like if you were doing caramels, you would want it to be something that is pliable, that you can move around a little bit, things like that. So each type of candy has a different temperature or a different feel to it. And the cold water will help you know that better than anything. So the thermometers are great so that you can know when you're getting close, but the cold water test is what tells you where you are perfect and you're ready to pull your sugar off the heat. Okay. Questions up to this point? All right. All right, we are going to move over. I'm going to hopefully move over to my iPad that is going to actually show us our demonstration. And so, yes, okay, perfect. So we have been boiling our sugar solution for a while, but I'm going to talk about a few things that come into play when making suckers or hard candy. So obviously you want to plan plenty of time. Our sugar solution has probably been boiling for about 45 minutes and it's still not quite there. And each day it's going to differ. And so you just kind of have to be aware of that. But some of the things you might have. So suckers are nice in molds. So these are a plastic mold. They look like this. And so those are kind of nice. They're not as pliable and it can be a little bit harder to get your suckers out of them sometimes, but they're still great. The other ones are a silicone mold like this. And so then when the sucker is done, you can just press it out, which is really handy. I already have these set with my sucker sticks, and that is something I will tell you to always do ahead of time. Don't wait till your sugar solution is ready to go because that's a really fast process. Once your sugar is ready, your solution is hot, and you're ready to go. You don't want to waste time because that will start setting very quickly. So you want to have everything prepped and ready. So we're going to do some sucker molds here today, and then we're also going to do something called broken glass. And broken glass is basically just pouring sugar out onto like a baking pan, baking sheet of some sort. We use these silicone ones here in our office, but you don't have to have that. You can just use a Jelly Roll pan. And basically it's just pouring it out, and then you get this nice little glass piece that you will get when you do that. We roll them in powdered sugar when we're done, so that way they don't stick to each other. But that's kind of what the two items we're gonna make today. The other thing you could do with this, if you had a mold for it especially, is you can make Jolly Ranchers or something like that. And so you can do hard candy syrup is very versatile. All right, we are going to be making cinnamon suckers. So I have a cinnamon oil here. It's a Loran oil. I do like the Loran oils for making candy, but you can pick up any kind of flavoring from the grocery store that you can find that you think would be good as a sucker. The other thing is gel coloring. This is called Deco Pack. This was donated to our office, but it's just a gel food color. You don't want to do powder or something like that. You want to do the gels. They just mix easier. They mix nicer. This is another type of gel food coloring that we have here in our office, and they just look like this. They're just a little bottle like this. So you can pick them up all kinds of craft places, hobby places, or at the grocery store. So I think we're ready, Gretchen. So Gretchen has tested this and done all of the things, and that's great. Woohoo! Yay for Gretchen. And so we are just going to move on. So this is the other thermometer I was talking about earlier. It's just got a circle like that and has a great little, it's easy to read. I really like it. It's one of my favorites. So when you do this, you do want to wait for that boiling to stop before you add your color or your flavoring. And so I'm gonna have Gretchen bring the screen over so you guys can see what that solution looks like when it's done. So when you start out with your sugar solution, it will be cloudy. It'll look like sugar in water, right? So it'll be a little cloudy. By the time it's done, it looks clear, just like this does. And so that's good. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna dump this cinnamon flavoring in here. Gretchen and I will be able to have clear smell for at least a month after this. Because cinnamon and peppermint are very, very strong. So when using them, be very, very careful. Okay. And then you're just going to mix that in. And see it'll bubble up on you. Okay, as you add that. All right. Okay, so that's all mixed up. It doesn't really take a lot of mixing. You can just stir it a few times and you should be good to go. Okay, I'm getting the cinnamon. So the next thing you're gonna do is something I like to do is I pour mine into like a liquid measuring cup, something with a spout that makes it easier for me to pour. It's really hard to pour straight from the pan. So I do this, okay? And then you just go along and start pouring into your molds. Just like this. Sometimes you can get air bubbles in your suckers. So if you have that problem, you can just tap your sucker mold when you have it all done on the table, and hopefully that will eliminate any air bubbles you might have. The other thought is, because sometimes they can be, like, especially the silicone ones, to pick them up after they've been poured is really hard. So you might put them on a cookie sheet, and then you could would pick up the cookie sheet to tap them. That makes it a little easier. It can also be very easy to overfill these, by the way. I usually make a huge mess, which is why I have pieces of parchment down so that I don't have to wait for the candy to harden before I clean it up. So one of the things that can be really difficult to do is when you get all done with this, you will have candy stuck in all of your pans, like this will be covered in it. So how do you get that out easily? How do you clean that up? The easiest way to do it is to put some water in your pan that you cooked your sugar solution. Oh, see, I told you. And then put it on the stove and boil it. Okay, and you just bring that up to a good boil for a while and it will cook that sugar solution out and you can just dump it out. It's super easy that way. This glass container, actually, this measuring cup that I'm using, what I'll do with it is I'll actually poke some water in it, as well as put water in a pan and then put it on the stove and boil both of them. And it helps get that out. So that's how you would do your sucker molds, okay? And then for the broken glass, it's super easy. You just take your broken glass and pour it, your sugar solution, and just pour it right out on your pan. Okay, it'll spread out. It'll make a nice, beautiful piece of sugar. And then you just take that once it's set, bang it on the counter. Sorry, that cinnamon, it's really strong. And you'll just bang it on the counter and it will break that glass for you. So this is what happens when you get too much. All right, so I think we are about out of time. So I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen now, who is going to finish this up. And if you guys have any questions, we can answer those in the next few minutes.